Alright, let's slow this down for just a second, because what you're about to hear isn't hype, it's context. And before we get deep into it, if you like clear, calm explanations about crypto and markets without fake promises or panic, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe right now. That way you don't miss future breakdowns like this, and you're part of a community that values understanding over noise. Now let's talk about what many people are calling a shocking new XRP timeline. Not shocking because of one single announcement, not because of a guaranteed price move, but because of how events, decisions, and positioning seem to be lining up over time. This isn't about predicting the future. It's about connecting dots that already exist and understanding why attention around XRP keeps returning, even after long quiet periods. XRP's timeline has never followed the typical crypto playbook. While many projects launched with big marketing, quick hype cycles, and fast burnouts, XRP moved through phases that looked slow, frustrating, and sometimes disappointing on the surface. But underneath that surface, something different was happening. Early on, XRP focused on utility instead of speculation. That decision alone set it on a different path. Utility-first projects don't move fast in public perception because their audience isn't retail excitement, it's institutional readiness. And institutions don't rush. As years passed, XRP became deeply entangled in conversations about regulation. For most crypto projects, regulation is something to avoid. For XRP, it became something unavoidable. That created delays, uncertainty, and constant debate. Many people walked away during that phase, assuming nothing would ever come of it. But timelines don't end just because attention fades. While public sentiment cooled, infrastructure development didn't stop. Technology continued to be tested, refined, and integrated quietly. Partnerships evolved. Payment corridors were explored. Compliance discussions continued behind closed doors. This is where the idea of a new timeline starts to make sense. Not a sudden switch, but a gradual shift from survival mode to positioning mode. In markets, positioning often happens when interest is lowest, when expectations are muted, when the spotlight moves elsewhere. That's not a coincidence. It's how large systems operate. Another important point in this timeline is narrative maturity. Early narratives around XRP were emotional and polarized. Over time, they've become more analytical, less shouting, more evaluation. That shift matters because mature narratives attract different participants. You start seeing more long-term thinking, more focus on real-world application, and less obsession with day-to-day price movement. That doesn't mean price is irrelevant. It means price is no longer the only metric. From an American perspective, this matters even more. U.S. financial markets are deeply influenced by compliance, risk management, and legal clarity. Assets that can't fit into that framework struggle to scale. XRP's long exposure to regulatory pressure may have slowed it down, but it also forced it to adapt. That adaptation process is part of the timeline people are now paying attention to. Another layer of this timeline is global alignment. Financial systems don't modernize in isolation. Changes in one region influence decisions in another. Cross-border payments, settlement speed, and cost efficiency are global problems, not local ones. XRP's design aligns with those global needs. That doesn't guarantee adoption, but it keeps XRP relevant in conversations about modernization. Relevance over time is rare in crypto, and it's worth noticing. It's also important to talk about expectations. Many people expect timelines to be linear. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3, outcome. Real timelines are messy. They pause, they loop back, they change direction. What looks like stagnation can actually be consolidation. What looks like delay can be preparation. This is why calling it a shocking timeline doesn't mean something dramatic happens overnight. It means the structure of the story itself is surprising when you look at it as a whole. Markets often reward those who understand structure rather than those who chase moments. Another key point in this evolving timeline is market psychology. After years of extreme volatility, many participants are more cautious. They ask better questions. They look for durability instead of excitement. Assets that survive multiple cycles tend to gain a different kind of respect. Not admiration, not hype, but acknowledgement. XRP has reached that stage for many observers. That doesn't mean everyone believes in it. It means fewer people dismiss it without thought. Technology timelines also matter. Systems that are meant to operate at scale need to prove reliability over time. Speed alone isn't enough. Stability matters. Consistency matters. Failure tolerance matters. XRP's network has operated for years without the congestion issues that plague some other systems. That operational record doesn't make headlines, but it builds confidence quietly. Another element of this timeline is education. The more people learn about how markets actually work, the less they expect instant results. results. Education shifts behavior. Behavior shifts outcomes. This is especially true in crypto, where early participation was often driven by emotion rather than understanding. As the space matures, conversations change. Less talk about overnight success, more talk about integration, standards, and long-term viability. That shift benefits projects built for infrastructure rather than speculation. It's also worth mentioning that no timeline exists in isolation from the broader economy. Interest rates, liquidity conditions, and global uncertainty all influence risk assets. Crypto doesn't escape that reality. Sometimes what looks like crypto-specific movement is actually macro-driven behavior. Understanding that prevents overreaction. The idea of a new XRP timeline is really about alignment between technology, regulation, market maturity, and global need. Alignment doesn't guarantee outcomes, but it increases relevance. And relevance is what keeps an asset in the conversation long enough to matter. For anyone watching this, the goal isn't to convince you of anything. It's to encourage a different way of looking at time in markets. Short-term thinking dominates headlines. Long-term thinking shapes outcomes. XRP's story isn't about one date, one decision, or one price level. It's about persistence through pressure. History shows that systems tested publicly tend to emerge either broken or strengthened. XRP has been tested extensively. The fact that it's still here is part of the story. As this timeline continues to unfold, attention will come and go, opinions will shift, price will move. That's normal. What's not normal is ignoring structure in favor of emotion. If you're paying attention now, you're not late. You're simply early in understanding the full picture. And that understanding, more than any headline, is what actually lasts. Markets don't reward urgency, they reward clarity. And clarity begins with seeing the timeline not as a countdown, but as a process still unfolding. And when you continue looking at this timeline with that mindset, another layer starts to become clear. Timelines in finance don't move forward because people want them to. They move forward when conditions allow them to. Desire has very little influence. Structure has almost all of it. That's why so many people feel frustrated. They confuse belief with timing. They believe in something, so they expect movement. But markets don't respond to belief. They respond to readiness. Readiness shows up in subtle ways. It shows up in systems being stress tested instead of marketed. It shows up in conversations moving from public speculation to private evaluation. It shows up when the loudest voices step back and the quietest players step in. XRP's timeline fits that pattern more than most people realize. Early excitement brought attention, then controversy brought scrutiny, then silence brought doubt. And now what we're seeing isn't noise returning, it's analysis returning. That difference matters. When hype comes back, it's usually loud and emotional. When analysis comes back, it's measured and cautious. The current phase feels far closer to the second than the first. Another part of this timeline is credibility. Credibility isn't built through promises, it's built through endurance. Being forced to operate under pressure, to answer difficult questions, and to survive uncertainty changes how a project is perceived. In many ways, XRP has already lived through what most crypto projects still haven't faced. That doesn't guarantee success, but it does reduce fragility. Fragility is what breaks systems when conditions change.